we're going to go 5-1, Anthony. So if you would please do the honors of getting us started with
number 5.
Thank you. Number 5, especially here in D.C., is the Washington Mystics season, which to me comes down to 2 key questions. One is a part basketball, part marketing question, if you will, and the other is kind of a big picture question. The big picture question is like, what are they going to do? Which, in the eyes of most prognosticators, could be more crudely asked is, how bad will they be? Mystics are not expected to be a particularly good team this year. I do think that there is a chance, like I see a path for them to be far better than people think. Ariel Atkins is a very, very, very good basketball player. Like, she's an Olympian for a reason. She's just kind of been a third banana, if you will, behind Natasha Cloud and, of course, Elena Delle Donne. And when especially Elena has missed time, the Mystics have not been particularly good. But if Shakira Austin emerges as the kind of superstar, as she prepares to be an Olympian potentially as well, the kind of superstar that we think she can be, then, you know, that pairing could lead them to be a competitive basketball team. The good news is they will either be competitive or in the mix for a very, very good draft pick, not only this year, but the year after. The way the WNBA lottery works, it is your combined record over 2 years that affects your lottery odds. And so, like, Paige Beckers is the prize of the next draft, and then you have Kiki Rice potentially the year after that. And so ultimately we'll see what the Mystics do. But I think there's also a lot of eyes on how well Aaliyah Edwards, this year's draft pick, plays in comparison to Angel Reese in Chicago. Unpredictably, Anthony, as I pulled myself back into the sports world this morning after a couple of days off over the weekend and went and looked at YouTube and looked at our comments from the weekend, I was getting crushed for saying that I think the Mystics made the right decision drafting Aaliyah Edwards over Angel Reese, because I genuinely think most people have never seen Aaliyah Edwards play outside of the one game against Caitlin Clark in the tournament, where Aaliyah wasn't particularly great against Iowa, and they've seen Angel Reese dominate at LSU, and she had a good preseason, and people are going to have the familiarity bias. WNBA scouts almost unanimously would pick Aaliyah Edwards over Angel Reese. That doesn't mean that they're right, though. Angel Reese is an exceptional basketball player. And so if Angel's really good for Chicago and Aaliyah struggles, even if, we'll see what it is long term, but struggles this year, people are going to have things to say, and people are going to care about the Mystics in a way that, it's not going to feel very good for the people in charge over there. So I do think that the brand value the Angel has makes that a much more intense discussion than it would be if it was just 2 players that people didn't have a lot of invested feeling about. But the reality is they do, and that is going to be the comparison between the two, which I think sucks kind of for both of them, but especially for Aaliyah, is going to be a story of the Mystics season. Hopefully a good one, which I mean, hopefully at least people are like, wow, they're both really good, and the Mystics made the right pick, because I don't wish poorly on Angel by any stretch of the imagination. I hope that she crushes it in Chicago. But if Angel's good and Aaliyah's bad, like, that's going to be a story here in D.C. all summer long.
Yeah, definitely going to be something to monitor, just because we had that luxury. And, hopefully, Aaliyah ends up, panning out and, playing extremely well. But it's always, the what if when it comes to, our Washington franchise. I seem to think we always get it wrong to an extent, or, we miss out on the opportunity. And I hope this isn't one of those times where, we had a chance and we didn't take it.
For sure. I mean, Aaliyah's shooting and her passing. I mean, Angel's a really good passer as well. I think it's actually an underrated part of her game. But Aaliyah's shooting is the big difference maker. We'll see if that pairs well with Austin and how those two play together starting tonight against the Liberty. All right, for the rest of the league, Ant, next storyline, please.
Number 4.
The schedule. You're going, the schedule? Yeah, the schedule. It is a 40-game schedule that is being jam-packed between now and August, because the Olympics are also in August, and the league will take an Olympic break, which means they got to get a lot of games in. They have streamlined the Commissioner's Cup to be a much less burdensome on the schedule, but there are back-to-backs. There's a lot of things that the league tries to genuinely avoid. Actually, Ted Leonsis made a pretty cool announcement on the Junkies this morning that the Mystics will actually play back-to-back games against Angel Reese in Chicago and then Caitlin Clark and Indiana at Capital One Arena on back-to-back days. Like, that's cool and all, but I prefer to not have to play back-to-back. And so, especially with some of these rookies that we're going to talk about in a minute, coming off their college seasons, and a lot of other veterans coming off of seasons overseas, like the schedule, the compounding of minutes. One, obviously, injury risk is there. But two, what kind of quality are we going to get in terms of play? Are we going to get some sluggish, not ideal basketball because this schedule is so compact? So, unfortunately, Ant, the reality is the schedule is story number 4. Number 3 is we finally get to the actual teams themselves.
Number 3.
Number 3 would be, what does year 2 of WNBA super teams look like? The New York Liberty made the finals last year, really gelled as the season went, and their big 3 is back together. Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Jonquel Jones. I recently saw a WNBA player ranking that had Jones and Stewart as 2 of the top 5 players in the league. That's always a great formula for success. Obviously, Sabrina's continuing to come into her own. She's inconsistent, but when she's on, her shooting is a huge, huge game changer. And so in year 2, with all of them playing together, can they figure out how to topple the Aces? We'll get to them in a second. And then the other kind of new super team in Seattle is obviously the Storm. Nneka Ogwumike, and back after maternity leave and some injuries is Skylar Diggins. And so with Diggins Smith and Ogwumike coming together and to join Jewel Lloyd in Seattle, that is a hell of a lot of talent. And you've still got Connecticut floating out there, who's really, really excellent with Alyssa Thomas and Dewana Bonner. So you've got a ton of talent concentrated in just a couple of teams. And by the way, this is going to wind up being a bit of an era for the W because in a couple of years, expansion is coming. Naturally, the talent is going to get more distributed. But as we sit in this super team era, how do some of these new teams come together? And how do some of the teams that have now been together for a year continue to grow?
Yeah, I forgot all about the Storm, to be honest. And it's crazy because you think about Skylar, you think about Nneka, you think about Jewel Lloyd. They all played against or relatively in the same era, I guess. So they're more of an older, I guess, more experienced super team compared to, what you have in Vegas, what you have in New York, and also Connecticut. So I'm excited, man. Also, to the expansion team. What is the team in Golden State?
They announced that today. The Valkyrie, Golden State Valkyrie with the purple logo. It's sick. By the way, Paige Beckers was like, that is a beautiful logo. So
it is.
And Paige could go back for not just next year. She's got another year after that, right? If she really wanted to be the number 1 pick in 2026, I think she can.
Yeah.
Between injury and COVID year, we got to be running out of COVID years. Anyway, all right. Last but not least, a team looking for a three-peat is number 2.
Number 2.
The Aces are looking to three-peat, the super team of the super teams. It was not easy for them last year. It was easy early. Candace Parker got hurt, and they really had to find themselves. They had to dig deep. They fought injuries in the finals, including Chelsea Gray, who will miss the first part of this season, their point guard, the point god. But they still have Asia Wilson. They still have Kelsey Plum. They still have Jackie Young. They still have Alicia Clark, my good friend, who is a menace defensively and is one of the best veteran leaders in the league. They still have. I feel like I'm still missing someone. Who am I missing?
They added Diasia Fair.
Yeah, well, then they added a couple of rookies who, and that's the thing, is their bench, which didn't play a ton last year, is even more confident and experienced. KB and Sydney Colson might start the year for them, who Sydney normally just is a delight on Instagram, as she's a menace to society and everyone, or everyone and society. Sydney's a menace, but she's also a better basketball player than I think she gets credit for, and she's probably going to wind up starting this year. But then they add Diasia Fair from Syracuse, who's the 3rd all-time leading scorer, was quietly chasing Caitlin Clark up the scoring chart this past year, and Kate Martin, who everyone knows is Caitlin's teammate from Iowa, who against all odds, made the team. Probably because she's a really smart player with positional size and can shoot and can rebound and can drive. And like they've got a little more depth to them, I think, this year than they did last year. And I will just say this real quick, Anthony, just a quick story because I have it. This weekend I was in Colombia. We went down to see Alicia and hang out and watch them play the Puerto Rican national team as their one and only preseason game in Colombia. And Asia Wilson is the should-be reigning league MVP, but former league MVP, finals MVP, best player in the sport. She is from Columbia, South Carolina. She helped put that South Carolina program on the map as the first major recruit that Dawn Staley had, who led them to their first national championship. And to be in the building and feel the emotion and see how much it meant to Asia to have that building fill up with people who watched her in college and are now came back to see her as a champion and a pro on the day that she announces she has her own signature shoe coming. Like, I was emotional just being there. Like, it was genuinely one of the coolest sporting events that I've ever been to in my life. And it was a preseason game that they won by 50. But it was just the environment of the building, the love in the building, and how much it meant to someone who's accomplished so much. On the floor, off the floor, she's a New York Times bestselling author. And so this feels to me like the year of Asia. I think she gets MVP. I think they three-peat. I have no idea what happens beyond that. But the vibes are good around the Las Vegas Aces, and I think that three-peat is coming.
You got some bold predictions, Craig?
Is it that bold to predict the team that's won 2 years in a row that somehow seems like they're getting better to win a third?
You might be right.
The law of averages is against it, but that seems to be the only thing. Last but not least, number one, of course.
Number 1.
The attention, a.k.a. the Caitlin Clark effect. How many people truly watch? And how many people carry over from what was an easy carryover for 1 week after the national title game where the women outdrew the men on television into the WNBA draft, which was the most watched WNBA event ever. And that can't happen. Your draft can't be the thing that people watch more than any game that has ever happened. Now, there's a chance they break it tonight with Clark's debut, 7:30 on ESPN2. But, and certainly, when they play the Aces and they play the Liberty and some of these star-studded teams, and if they make the playoffs, like, it's going to be a story. But also, do people want to watch more than Caitlin Clark? Do people, we just saw the game against the Sky get moved. Is there an Angel Reese effect where the Sky are drawing outsized audiences? Or are people just now realizing this product is exceptional? And so if I like sports and I like basketball, I should watch it. And it's more sports, and more sports is good. We can talk about it. We can talk about the games. We can talk about the storylines. We can talk about it like we do sports because, Anthony, at the end of the day, it is merely sports. And then I think there is kind of the 1B of the Caitlin Clark effect, which is how does her game translate? The history of rookies in the WNBA is not good. That step up that, everyone wanted to crush Diana Taurasi and others who were like, hey, just don't think they're going to come in and be amazing in the W. That is a statement set on precedent, set on history. Like, rookies don't average 20 points a game in the W. Like, I think in the last, 10 years or something like that, 12 is, the highest. Like, rookies struggle coming into the league, going all the way back to when Candace Parker broke that and was the league MVP and rookie of the year in the same year. And I think Clark in particular is such an interesting player to come into the league because this is a league that is built on physicality and technicality. And her game is so skill-based. And she has an ability to break down some of the technicalities and the physicalities by just doing things that other players can't. From the step-back threes to some of the get-ahead passes to all of these things. And there is a wave of players behind her, from Juju Watkins to Kiki Rice to Paige Beckers, that are coming in the next couple of years that are more in, let's call it the Steph Curry mold, the Caitlin Clark mold, than what has traditionally worked in the league. Highly physical, highly technical players that just crush their opponents with, making the right play at robotic consistency and doing those things extremely well and playing very tough physical brand of basketball. And so Caitlin's attention that she's brought to the game and how that translates is fascinating. I'm also fascinated how her game actually translates because I think that we're seeing a sea change in the style of play potentially in the WNBA to a style that I think is beautiful to watch. A lot of ball movement, great shot making, all the things that attract people to this game. And that is only going to then feed the attention as people watch and get extreme joy out of watching the highest level of basketball that you can watch anywhere, anytime, any place.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.